rhythm and joy from birth to 6 years. And so with those two words together, I feel that rhythm and understanding what that can be for your family can give moments and more opportunity for joy as we simplify and think about what is that? What can it be for us? And I love this statement. How do we cultivate the conditions of joy to expand? We train in staying present. And if there's anything in my perspective that speaks of parenting, is it trains us in staying present. It requires us to stay present. And with that, it can be very joyful if we can do that. So, we human beings have been shaped over the millennia by the rhythmic rotation of the earth, by the diurnal dance of day and night. Sometimes I think we forget it in our hectic pace of living, that we have been shaped by our environment for a long time. Oops, I went the other way because I deleted, excuse me. Rhythm is the beginning of life itself. All of life is in motion and rhythm, is what brings order to this life motion. Rhythm is what brings that order to that motion of life. Sorry, I keep hitting delete. Excuse me, jeez. I did practice that. A baby in the womb has their life rhythm set by the beat of the mother's heart, her rhythmic breathing, and other synchronized body rhythms. This makes me think of when babies are born prematurely and so on, and just that idea of having skin-to-skin contact, whether it be the father, the mother, any human being, right? For that infant, for that baby, just that closeness, that entrainment, that rhythmic connection that they're finding is so, so important. New infants need to be kept close to the parents' hearts because their heartbeat and breathing is not yet fully rhythmic. This close proximity entrains the baby's biorhythms, bringing safety and calm. And I think too, that sometimes is something we forget, that, and I often, in the readings that I do and so on, that we think of that first, the it's that extra trimester, right? After birth, that really is, we continue to grow. We aren't like the animals that come out and they can stand and they can function. There's some reason why we are birthed when we are, to be able to see what it is to be a human being and come into that rhythm naturally. To be a human being is to be present and conscious of the rhythms that live within and without us. Being rhythmic beings, we thrive in the consistency and safety that daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly rhythms provide for us. Whatever that may be. I know we're very blessed to be, and I know I'm nurtured being in a state, being in Cincinnati, where I can really live through the seasons, but even in areas that don't see the big changes, they're still very recognizable seasons for people. So isn't that amazing that we can be formed by that? Toddlers and preschoolers love rhythms and rituals. When we move through our days with a rhythmic flow, when our children know this is the way we do it, with each activity, they can experience a sense of certainty and even mastery. This creates a deep security and calmness, which resonates out from their whole physiological being. The body is calm and harmonious, and emotions can be that of joyful purpose. They do not need to push the boundaries to find a place of rest. Firmness is in the activity itself. This is the way we do it, because they imitate so deeply within their self. With such inner firmness and flexibility, the world becomes their oyster. They can explore with balance and find their very best self in the security of rhythm. Rhythm also helps avoid overstimulation and fatigue for young children, because the breathing of the day, now more active, now less active and quiet, refreshes their energy. It also builds good habits for later life, when the pace of our day and the stress of life make us forget to pace ourselves in a reasonable way. This work, play, rest rhythm is a healthy habit for a whole lifetime. I'm thinking what we bring to our young children can really establish that as being necessary and life-giving as we get older. And I just want to share today, it was lovely. I unfortunately had to have my fourth graders come in for an extra 10 minutes at their beginning of their lunch recess, because we couldn't find quiet in class. They all came in, they did beautifully, and then on the way out, as I was taking them to recess, one of the little girls turned and said, "That was really nice." I said, "Yeah, sometimes just putting my head down and really allowing myself to close my eyes and just be quiet is really nice." So which was great, because I didn't do it as a punishment, but just no, you know how to do this, and it's okay, and it's a good thing. So just a little aside there. When a child's life is characterized by regularity, consistency, and stability, the child's will energies, which you probably have heard some of your teachers, or if you haven't, they will talk about that, are fostered, and the developing neural circuitry of the brain will reflect that regularity, consistency, and stability. This is the foundation for later achievement in school, happiness and success in life, and for peace in the home and in the broader community. So how do we do this? How do we support? We support their life-building will energies by having physical and emotional warmth, wholesome and nourishing foods, an atmosphere of beauty and reverence, consistent daily rhythms, and a calm, loving authority and guidance. So what is rhythm? So I went to vocabulary.com, and of course Wikipedia these days. So rhythm comes from the Greek rhythmos, measured movement or flow. Rhythm generally means a movement marked by the regulated succession of strong and weak elements, or of opposite or different conditions. And in my mind, and what you'll hear a lot of, is this in-breath and out-breath, right? So that speaks there. So rhythm is the daily, weekly, and yearly reoccurring activities in our lives that are done with intention and love. And I always like those two ideas, intention but love, because we don't impose it, but we live within it to help us be able to connect with one another as a family and make that connection more important. What is rhythm? It's based on anchor points: a wake-up time, a nap time, a bedtime, meal times, and then other scheduled obligations such as school and work. It's flexible and fluid, inclusive of everyone's needs, so the full family, right? Everyone's needs are a part of this thought. It's calming, it's predictable, and it's natural. It's not something that is enforced. So it is not a concrete schedule. You've got to do it this way. Boom, boom. It's not rigid, it's not stressful, it's not static, and it is not forced, which sometimes that calendar can look like, or those ones that have the down to the timing, right? We didn't have lunch right at the right time. It's going to throw my whole day off now because we didn't hit that. Not about that. So that, I hope, is something that's releasing of the pressure. Rhythm is flow, where B happens after A and C comes before D. The key to rhythm is that it centers on the concept of around. So not having to be time specific, but around. But certainly this thing came before it, this comes after it, and then we move on to this next thing. Creating rhythm in one's own life doesn't mean being rigid and dogmatic. There is still plenty of room for special activities and surprises. And sometimes the piper to pay the next day, when the child has missed a needed nap or had a late exciting evening, but is worth it. But freedom is not without form, and one is truly free when not hampered by a disorganized life. The rhythmic structure imposed on a young child and permeated with the parent's love is a discipline in the most sense of the word. And as your children become older, they will transform this outer structure into an inner self-discipline that will be invaluable for homework and getting other jobs done. Putting attention into these areas can help the quality of life for both you and your children from the time they are toddlers until they leave home. So this is just an example of a possible daily rhythm, and I apologize that you can't really see the outdoors there. But it's simple. It's the larger ideas there, right? Are waking up, breakfast, some kind of child-led free play, indoors or outdoors. You can be imaginative or constructive, and/or an activity, baking, crafting, dancing, painting, tidying up. And I love this, a morning tea. And then outdoor time. And then lunch, and then a rest and a quiet time after that. Then another time of child-led free play, an afternoon tea. And in the evening, maybe, again, doing your food prepping. If everyone is helping, they're a part of the meal planning. Maybe you take a walk, maybe that's where the rough and tumble stuff is. Then there's dinner, and then into the ritual, whatever that is, towards sleep. So the big things, waking, meals, play, activity, quiet time. This is just another graphic of this concept of in-breaths and out-breaths and what that might look like. And I think a good way of thinking is that the in-breath is a time where there's stillness, there's inner focus on something. And so this person is saying there's an in-breath of waking up and getting dressed. It's all very self-focused and really coming from the night, right? And then coming into this idea, oh, I'm back here on the earth. And then an out-breath. And then hopefully another in and out. And if you can think of it in that way, then there's rest. And you're not necessarily just always going. And I think sometimes, I feel that when I'm on vacation, a lot of times that's a go, 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 go that you're doing, or during holidays, right? You're just go, go, go. And then it's like, you're overwhelmed in that space because you may not have had enough downtime. I've shared this in class, and for those of you and this is something that's very involved, and it's a planner that you can purchase, and it's from a company called We Nurture Collective that is run by an amazing woman who was a kindergarten teacher forever, and she has beautiful graphics, number one, at her site, lots of parent help, lots of lovely, lovely work, but she also gives this idea, if you need and you enjoy doing a lot of pre-work and writing it down. So it's one option that you can purchase, and it's seasonal. So that because things can change depending upon the season, and it might even be, I'm not sure, available as a download instead of getting the hard copy. I wanted to do this just so I could see it. But the thing I like about it is when she goes into how to use it, she really gives you, and I know you can't really read it there, but you can look through it in a minute. But she has a beginning, a start, whatever season you're in, you set your intentions. And then you reflect on what you're doing already. So there's a big part of reflection. Then you consider it. You identify the non-negotiables for yourself. What is the flow? What's the in and out breath? What would be your ideal rhythm? So you write down what it could be. And then you plan ahead for 4 months, and then you prepare weekly, and then daily, and then ending. And she gives you this lovely way of just moving through with thinking and intention. And she even brings something about a mood of the day as you move through your week. There's a mood for Sunday and Monday and so on. What it might mean for you and for your child, which is kind of a nice way to think about your week. And then she also does give examples of what an in-breath and an out-breath might be, which is, I feel like too, is helpful whenever you begin to work with something that's kind of new. It's like, oh, was that an in? Was that an out? What does it feel like? So there are options out there to help you define it as well. And then these are just the resources that I used for this presentation, but it's also from some of the books that I have as an option up there. So it feels like, close out, just want to root these pictures that she did. But I think, and in the handouts that that we have for you, one, again, the book that I talked about, we could turn this on. This will be the part of the time where we all share and work together. But this is almost labor intensive, right? If you're thinking about what the heck, what can I do? But this handout is much simpler, and it's a step-by-step kind of guide with some questions to help you reflect. It's a little bit easier and less in-depth. The other one that we have is a larger chapter out of Kim John Payne's book, Simplicity Parenting. And if you've read it in the past and you haven't looked at it for a while, sometimes I love going back to things that I've already worked in and looked at. And his full description of rhythm within the larger concept of trying to remove, of simplifying life and using rhythm is a way to do that. I find this very helpful. And he has, when he starts, I love it, because he says, life today for most families is characterized more by randomness and improvisation than rhythm. You're right, right? And so he pulls from different families and his experience over years and years of time. And that was based back in, I think I had the original book, and I think it was 2009 or 2010. So much more has been done and talked about with that. The other books, Heaven on Earth, which is lovely. I used this in my class for a number of years before I used the book that we do now. But again, a handbook for parents and young children. And then she came out several years later with a companion, like a workbook, that goes with the book, how to create the star of your family culture. And so it's quite lovely as well. Just again, if you're more inclined to be somebody that loves to ruminate and work through, this is lovely to work with. And then she wrote something. I actually did during COVID. I only had one taker, but we did a book study on this one. And she again wrote with brain science and just what we do and how the growth and all of this new information that we're able to see into the brain now, how what we do in Waldorf education, it really does support what's going on with that. Now, she doesn't say that right out, but that's absolutely what's going on. Since I'm speaking to those of you who are in Waldorf education, I can say that. Beyond the Rainbow Bridge, again, another one I used years ago, Nurturing Our Children from Birth to 7. Very simple, very clear understanding about child development and rhythm and lovely things. And And she always, I love this book because she ends each chapter with questions from parents, which I always love for parents to hear that and to see that. And then this one, The Rhythm of Family, Discovering a Sense of Wonder Through the Seasons. Anytime I find a book that's beautiful, that's seasonally, and what you can do, terrariums, ideas, what she and her family experienced through a year, it's quite beautiful as well. So these are some of the, as well as other things that I took from, but I mean, Carmy, and we also obviously in our classes and at school, your children are experiencing a certain kind of rhythm in their days, and in how we work. And we hope, I know for my classes, I always hope that you can take elements of what we do and begin to work with them in your own home as that. But then for Ms. Carmy, if you want to come up and have a seat as well, my dear.
I won't leave you up there by
yourself. No, don't leave me by myself. There's a whole other experience for your children here at school within the rhythm that becomes more constant because they have more days and they're away from you within that. So they're having a rhythmic experience here at school. And I guess sometimes I'd love to ask the question, well, how do you sense the rhythm that you have at home? Or what questions do you have about it? Or is something working well? Or are you in a conundrum place where it's like, man, how do I work with an adolescent, in the rhythm for them as they're getting older? Just big questions. Or multiple children. How do you balance it? Yeah. So, if you want to just
well, I would just say,
anything.
yeah, I mean, just when the preschool children come, then you're starting to create that rhythm, a school rhythm, which is new. And so, like getting up, getting to school, getting, all those things. And then within that, Steiner talks a lot about those first years where you are really supporting the children's breathing. And that's where that in and out breath comes. But you're really helping them learn how to breathe. And, it doesn't just come. It comes, obviously, we're all breathing that first breath and then it starts, but we're also like really bringing that into a rhythmic form for them so that it's happening naturally, and then that's being supported by everything that's in their environment. So we're starting in with that, just it's rice day, or it's painting day, or it's that kind, then that kind of rhythm starts, or we're not, like, we don't stick to a time. I mean, I'm sticking to a time frame. I know it's like, but, or, you really, what you do start to see when you do start to create a rhythm for children is you see them embracing that rhythm, and then when it starts to get off, you're sensing a shift in their energy. And so I really work with that a lot, and like when we're outside, and I'm like, okay, we need to start switching. The play is getting chaotic, or it's getting, something's, or they're settling into it in a really beautiful way, so then I can extend it a little bit. And so that's like really playing with that rhythm. But if I let it go too long, then they're gonna be hungry and they're gonna be out of whack for the next thing that we're doing. So you just have to really work with that. But once you have it established, you can do that. So that's where it comes in, where one of the things that you had up there where it's not rigid, it's, it is a rhythm, and it's not rigid, you're not locked into it, but you'll quickly see when you do have a good strong rhythm, when you're out of it, what starts to happen. And it's like, let's get that, right that back in. But yeah, so we're really working with that in the preschool, like establishing that rhythm. They're in school, they're starting to recognize, we don't teach the days of the week or anything like that, but they know it's like, oh, it's rice day, oh, it's painting day today, and then they're all excited and they know what to expect. And so by having that consistency, it really allows them to relax and not have a certain anxiety about what's happening next. That they know they know what's happening next, even if they question it, or you have to remind them, or they may ask, but they know in their hearts what's happening next, and then they can relax into the work of childhood, which is at this age, and the preschool is play, and that social, building those social connections and working with that, and just developing their physical bodies and all of those things. So this is creating that big, new rhythmy term, that big bow around them that's embracing them. The rhythm of our day is embracing them and holding them, so that then they're free to do all this other exploration supported by their teachers and by the activities that we're bringing to them. So that's why that rhythm really is at the basis of all that. And it's seasonal, it's seasonal, and once you get into kindergarten, preschool and kindergarten, we really revolve around the festivals. It's a very important part of it, that they're first, when the children first come to preschool, they may be like 2.5, just 3.5 when they first enter, and they've just been speaking. They've just had Christmas twice, and it's like, when you really start to put that in their perspective, it's like, then those seasonal rhythms really start to come into play, and we're supporting that in with those festivals and the festival life that we have at school, and all the things that we do seasonally, which may as an adult seem very repetitive and possibly boring, but for them it's all new and very exciting, and it's starting to build those life forces that then carry them on into school, into kindergarten, and into school. So it's really supporting all of that.
And I think what you're saying, what we work with at school, in family life, is the same thing.
Right.
Because you're creating the culture of your family with those important nodal points through the years and so on, markers that are important to you as a family, and to what's important in your life together. And so to try to figure out how can that flow? How can that flow from school and then at home with those lovely hours that you have that are, not that many, especially all of you who work and so on. Wow, how do you do it? And be able to, yeah. And hopefully what you'll find is that putting the work in on the outside, on the beginning, you will end up being able to relax into it as well. So it's not just for your children, but it's also, I think, for you as well.
And you may have to repeat the same thing 9 million times.
Yes.
You may feel like you're repeating it 9 million times. It doesn't just come, you don't create this rhythm and then they fall into it.
Right.
Just like, oh, got a rhythm now. You're really, like every day we're constantly reminding them over and over again. Like, oh, we're doing this now. That's one of my big phrases. We're doing this now. We're doing this now. This is what we're doing now.
We're doing this now.
Yeah, to bring them back to the moment, the present moment, and it does really help. And then that gives them a really, even though they're questioning, like, well, what's next? What are we doing? But this is what we're doing now, and that brings a focus and a center and a calm to the children, so we can just really say, because I'll get a lot of questions like, well, who's going to be the candle person tomorrow? And who's, I didn't get a turn today. And I'm like, well, right now we're doing this, and we'll find out about that tomorrow. So, and then that really helps. That helps them, like, okay, she's got this, and then you build that trust. I think also rhythms really help develop trust in their lives, in you as a parent, and just in that, okay, it's kind of that, like, the sun's gonna come up tomorrow, you just have that trust in that somebody's got this, I don't have to worry about it, it's like, this is gonna happen, I'm gonna have a bath time, I'm gonna have a bedtime. They may push against it because that's also their job, is to push against that. That's probably a whole nother topic, boundaries, that's their job, is to really, like, create boundaries, push against boundaries so they know where they are, so they'll continually question that rhythm, but but it makes it easier to uphold it when they know that it's coming. It's easier to uphold the boundaries when there's a rhythm surrounding it. So if that makes sense.
And what's nice in this article from Kim Jong-hae, and he goes through that, even with an example of dinner, that we've lost the family dinner because of different schedules, et cetera, and he just talks about the beauty of it, and how some of the families that even, like, when they get to the teenage years, push back against it. And one father even said, you know, we made a point with our sons to make sure that we spent a lot more money on our food budget for a while, and their friends were always invited to come. But then that's what's looked at in years after as being something that, oh man, that was really important that happened. Don't push it, but no, you can come and have a meal. Invite your friends. The friends probably remember it too. That was the house that, you know what, yeah, we could always go and have dinner and sit down and have that time, that time together as we move into the different years. But questions, thoughts?
Well, I want to make a little comment.
Yes.
I get asked a lot by prospective parents, especially parents who have just maybe one child entering preschool. And they're asking me a lot about the program, and one thing I get asked a lot is, what kind of field trips do they do in preschool? And so it's a really nice way to talk about this, about rhythm, and how, you know, while our middle school kids are rarely on campus, they're constantly out in the world experiencing different kinds of field trips, you know, plays, things like that. At the preschool level, we really are working so hard to establish that rhythm and consistency, that to be constantly uprooting it for something different is undermining the program. And especially because most of the children don't come 5 days a week. They come either just 2 or 3 days a week. And so really the teachers are working so hard. And I'm also, when you talked about trust, Carmy, it reminded me, I'm on the committee with both of these two actually, that reviews teachers in the school. And I'm gonna just share something from your review, sorry. But when the reviewer came to review Miss Carmy one time, she's at the end of it, after she had observed her whole day and written up her report, she came to talk to the committee, and I remember her saying that she herself had such a beautiful, peaceful day because she could feel how strong the rhythm was, and that she felt just carried along, and she didn't have to think about everything or stress about everything. She was just carried along with the rhythm, and that has always stuck with me about how important it is that the adults are holding that, because if they do, then the children can just feel free and joyful and not be worrying so much.
And that took a lot of work.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
say, because Susan Weber, who was one of these people who were quoted, was my mentor at one point. And, you know, that was one of the things we worked on as I was as a new teacher, because when I first started teaching, it was not in a Waldorf school, and I was required to take the children on a field trip once a month. And it was insane. I was like, what? You know, anyway, but I tried to come up with some good field trips. But anyway. But yeah, and we, you know, and here we go when it's a really rainy day, we have a field trip with a puddle hunt, you know, and they love that. They love to go on a puddle hunt or things like that just, you know, are there available to us within their day. That's a little bit outside of the norm, but that makes it exciting, that is fun.
And I just want to say one other comment too, which is as a little maybe piece of advice to those of you who have younger children, that I do feel when I had young children that I was often looking for something big to do with them. You know, like, oh, it's just, we should go, you know, to Kings Island, or we should, whatever, do something. I need to take them to the park so they could be out in nature even, you know, and my mother-in-law, who has a background in Waldorf education, when my kids were pretty little still, she said, your backyard is fine. Like a blade of grass. We're just, you know, you don't have to go all out, and you don't have to create all of these adventures for young children. There's time for all of that. But the very simple things are often, you know, just perfect for littles. And so I think that's something to just keep in mind, that you don't have to do everything all at once. You've got plenty of time for the big things.
I was just thinking about that, Karen, how much it's changed from my first to my fourth, and each child, it was just reined in more and more and more and more. And all Leslie does is go to NatureTots, and that's it, you know? The other kids had the oldest had all the things, but it left us feeling frantic, and even though there was a rhythm to the day, but the rhythm involved an outing constantly.
Right.
I think it disrupted the nap, and I think any of us have experienced the day it's a rainy day and your kids read books all morning is the day they take a 4-hour nap, but the day you had them at the museum tiring them out is the day they don't nap, you know? It's like this opposite effect, but it's part of why I have support with my fourth in the home, is to maintain her rhythm while I do that with the other three, because I found when I was dragging the younger one along constantly, which you tend to do when you have two, you know, that the rhythm was just always disrupted for that little one. They were always overstimulated, overexposed, and they really just need their rhythm in the backyard, and that's it. And NatureTots once a week.
Well, don't do these, but come to me.
Yeah.
Of course you'll come to my class.
But even that rhythm is so peaceful. It's not, I mean, we went to music class, it was like everyone had to take a turn, and it was so restrained, and you know, your class like feeds what the child needs to experience in that moment. It's just a natural,
Yes,
organic rhythm that fits the child.
yes, and that's,
Very
and
different.
hopefully that's right, that's what happens. And I find too that sometimes those things that are geared toward, even though they're, like you said, the music class or even
Or touch a truck.
Oh my,
Regret every touch a truck I ever went to my first.
Like every so many, oh my goodness, yeah.
Lines,
Now you just,
reading,
yes,
sun.
it's like that doesn't, it's not, no, they don't like it, really, it's not, I mean, you're trying to, but we don't know that, because we don't understand how much of a sense organ they really are, and that they don't have that capacity to not. That we are their regulation for something, until, as something was said there, that rhythm we give them then becomes their rhythm inside. I mean, even from infancy, you know, the whole idea of finding that sleeping rhythm and the eating, and I mean, the body responds, right? When it becomes dinner or whatever, your body will start to be ready for that. And we are such rhythmic beings, and I think we try to push it so often not to be. And that's when we fall into problems, I think, also for ourselves as grown-ups as well. Yeah. And being observant, you know, that again, like I started with that first one, we have to be present and observe, and then step back and go, oh, okay, what needs to change? Because rhythm changes, and it's okay. Wherever that place is within the family, whatever's happening, we have to be open to that too. And and I think it was great, because I remember you saying something, Carmy, about rhythm can still be a rhythm, but be overwhelming, right? So there's, we got rhythm, but we're doing this, not, right? Choose the rhythm that feels good for your family, and for everyone that's involved in that. Other thoughts or questions, or why did you feel like, oh, maybe I need to come and hear this tonight? Vicky.
I have plenty of things to say.
Yeah, please. Please share. We learn from each other.
Yeah. One of the things that I really enjoyed, I'm sure you've heard and others have experienced, this idea that we as parents are also learning through what our children are going through here, which is really beautiful. And so sometimes I feel guilty and a little selfish, because there are times where a lot of the lessons that are happening for Dottie and Daphne really resonate with me. And it's really hard, because I want to be present and joyful for them to go through these experiences. But I'm finding so much out of this for my own self and unlearning a lot of what I thought parenting was. And so throughout my parenthood, I've realized and understood my own dysregulation. I have executive functioning disorder and ADD, and one of the triggers is interruption. And I mean,
Just your whole life.
right, yeah, and I only have two.
Yeah, doesn't matter, they take up the space.
Yeah, they do, right, exactly. And so in the moments where I'm trying to find rhythm for them, it's dysregulating for me, and then having to kind of tap into that sacred geometry of flow is really difficult. And how is it, and this is rhetorical, how is it that I don't get upset or dysregulated or angry over the things that are happening in their lives when they need to like get outside or for one thing that that's been happening is I've been trying to get Dottie to understand this rhythm of I pick her up, I come home, we have lunch, then it's quiet time. And we've been moving away from saying nap time because she's in this phase now where it's like, I'm not tired. But I am. When I only sleep 4 hours a night, and then at like 2 to 3:30, 4 is my crash zone. I do say, this is what we're doing now. Baba has to rest. I have to have quiet time. But she's raring to go, and all she wants to do is play. Another layer. I teach play and joy, and I feel the lack of this rhythm in my students who are young adults in college, and they do not have a rhythm. They do not have these things that we're trying to cultivate because of many different things. And so I also feel there's another layer of guilt where I'm preparing my classes for my students, and I'm playing and finding joy and doing different field trips with college students because it's important. And then I get home and Dottie and Daphne are like, Baba, play with me, play with me, play with me. What do you want to do? And I'm just like, I'm exhausted. I can't. I have to cook dinner, this happening. And so all of that and more. I don't even know if there's a question in there. But what is how?
Gosh, I think that rest time, quiet time question, I don't know. It's definitely something that we struggle with. I mean, even now, my daughter's, it's been a long struggle. She's like almost 9. But like we need that time, and I feel like she needs to have that time. But insisting on it, and I mean, we were on vacation recently, and we were like, we just need 20 minutes, okay? We just need 20 minutes. Your dad's gonna meditate, I'm gonna close my eyes for a minute. And it's like the next thing we hear is like stomping around and like getting the ice and just, and we've been at it for a while, so I don't know what we're not quite, but I feel like that's,
Yeah, and it's hard too because I can't function properly if I don't have that rest. And then I get quicker to my rage monster. And I don't want that to happen, of course. So there's this really hard balance between wanting to and needing to give her rhythm, but also needing my own rhythm in order for the rhythm to stay rhythmic. So how can I fix that?
Thank you for sharing.
I want to say, Jerome, first of all, you are not alone.
Absolutely.
I just think we can all of us who have children can empathize with that. And it's not easy. It's not easy. So that's really the first thing. And I know when I had children your kids' age, when I have felt so compelled to put them in front of a TV, it's because of that. You know, just feeling like I need a minute away. And I think you definitely will find a solution, or at least a somewhat solution to make your life easier. I know what worked for me eventually was having a rest time with my two children. Like, we're all laying down in the bed together, and even the bigger one at that time would lay there if I was laying with her. So they would all, and then the little one and I would fall asleep, and the big one eventually would just look at books quietly. But it was like, we're all sitting on the bed and no one's getting off for X amount of time. But you'll find what works for you. I'm glad you're asking and sharing. And these two may have some good tips too.
She does.
So it's just daddy, that's it?
Yeah, and Daphne protests. She doesn't want to, but she's so ding dong tired. Like,
But she does fall asleep.
she does eventually, but with grandma rocking, you know, like that. If grandma is busy, or if that doesn't happen, there's no nap. And then we do try to like go to the thing and do this and go outside to tire them out, and then doesn't
They're so worn out, it's just meltdowns.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know, it's
Unfortunately,
like
that-
it's the
yeah.
wrong beast.
Right.
That can backfire, which is, that's hard.
Yeah.
Have you considered Miss Mona? I think the aftercare, truly, I found when I incorporated aftercare, my children's mood was so beautiful when they came home. It gave them just the right amount of rest. It gave me the space, you know, that they were for sure not there, and I could take that time if I needed it.
Yeah.
But
I got it.
then I could focus on the younger one to make sure they had their rest. And then it's about an hour of rest, and then they get to play. They still get time with their peers. So if she's not needing the rest, she's needing the play. She's getting both.
Right.
So,
Okay.
I mean, at first I felt like I was cheating, like, oh, this is half-day kindergarten, I'm putting my kid in daycare afterwards.
Right.
And then, like,
I'm
right
even
at the-
parenting right
Yes,
now.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's how I
yeah.
felt. But then, you know, especially if I know the time I had him, there's so much more peace. And my second born daughter's spicy, and so it really helped to just settle the mood. And she came home in such a better place. Like, her needs were met. I think sometimes you have to look at the child and say, like, what are you telling me you need? You know what I mean? And what do I need? And those things don't match. So how are we gonna
No.
like try to compromise
Yeah.
and make it match? And sometimes it's like thinking outside the box.
Okay.
But not to say do aftercare, but I'm just
No,
saying
yeah.
it really helped my
Yeah.
middle two especially.
That's a good thought, and we might talk about that
We can definitely
Even
talk, and I
just
think
try it,
sometimes,
dinner
yeah,
time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Having a
one
village.
place and
Yeah. having a village, I think,
Yeah.
can be very helpful, and I love what you said, it also gives you the time,
Mhm.
so that when they come home, you are in a place where you can hold the rest of the day. Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely happy to share, but, I did do a sleep study, or a research project as part of and I didn't know Susan Weber was your mentor too. She's mine too. But, I think for me, the big thing about having been a Waldorf student and now being in training is it's always okay to wonder and live with the question and somehow allow yourself not to have the answer. You know, sometimes I have 12 children that come to me from the 2 different preschoolers, and you know, as Miss Carmy knows, sometimes she will hand one to me one day and she's like, and I go, and then, you know, and I was like, that's all we have to say, and I just go, thank you, Miss Carmy. And so, just as an example, I mean, now I've had these children, most of them, you know, for a whole year, and some of them I've had, you know, 2 years now, and they change, and it can be different when they come back from break, because their rhythm has been different for a whole week, and so I think from hearing what you're saying, I think just truly allow yourself as a parent to know that every day is different, and what you guys touched on and being in present time, I think is the only saving grace for me in there, is like, okay, I have 12 children, and somehow magic has to happen, and they're all gonna love resting, right? And so in the beginning of the year, it's not exactly how they walk in. They're like, oh, Miss Mona, lovely to get to know you, and we love to rest. generally they all walk in, they're like, you know, excited, they just had lunch, like, so their food is working in them at that time. And so in the beginning, I felt like they had to go to sleep, like that was my job, like, so I a little bit had this like, oh, I'm supposed to have them rest, like this is what their parents want, this is what I'm supposed to do, or sleep. But I did change the wording, just like you did. So this is just like, for me, the goal is that they learn to rest in this very busy world, and they have some time where they can just lay themselves and wander or think with their babe. And the moment I allow myself to let go of the pressure of I have to live up to being this like perfect Waldorf teacher, and just allow the children to come in and then get to know them slowly, and actually get to know them. The moment Miss Carmy hands one child to me, even though I've had them for a year or two, that day it's a different day. And so, and it depends how they slept the day before. Like, for example, this week I had children came back from break and they were exhausted. I know I exhausted your child the week before, but we had camp. But so she came in super tired, and so a lot of them came in tired. Maybe they didn't nap at all the week before. So Monday or Tuesday was like a breeze for me. They all just went to sleep. Then today, most of them didn't sleep. Like, but I think they had 2 really good naps, 2 days in a row. And yeah, so I think it's like the most important thing is you finding a peace in yourself, I think, or at least it was for me. And just allow yourself to wonder, what do they need right now? And in my training, that's the biggest walk away I have from my training so far, is that you're not necessarily looking for an answer as a parent or a teacher. You're allowing yourself to live with a question, and you're allowing yourself, because we're living beings. You know, there is not a set way for Noah or Evelyn. Like, you know, Evelyn loves her little backstroke, right? And Noah just, I mean, he would sleep at that time to come over, but otherwise he wouldn't, right? I hope it's not use your examples, but. And so each child likes something different. And then you find out they crave that different thing. So in the beginning of the year, I'll try different things. And then by the end of the year, I know, okay, this one likes foot rubs, this one likes that back, this one does not want their hands touched at all. Or, you know, some like foot rubs and some like, they don't want them touched at all. And they might change. So, but there is some tricks I want to say. I do have tricks in the tool belt that I'm gathering, and there is colors, and colors can help. Singing. Colleen told me one time so beautifully. I was like, I know we're singing, right? We always sing everything. And then Colleen finally like, this is why we do it. And you know, I know it's different for everyone, but like basically her way of saying it was that the children are closer to the angels that we are. So if we're singing that higher pitch, it really helps. And so if I sit on the rocking chair and I have those 10, 12 children trying to sleep, I can't give them all foot wraps. It's just impossible. So I will sing to them. I would be like, Evelyn, quiet time. Noah, close your eyes. And actually, so I can sit and tell a story. And then in my story, I'll sort of sing it. And I realize they hear me if I'm singing it, but if I'm speaking it, they don't hear it. So test it out for yourself. But singing it, it's like cleanup time. If they're all noisy and busy, I'm like, it's cleanup time. Nobody hears a thing. But singing it, they're like, they hear it. So it's, yeah. But there is some sleeping tricks that we have this year, and we have a really good resource. There's a teacher at Sophia's Hearth that actually does online help with sleeping, so I'm happy to share that too. She's a Waldorf teacher too, so she understands this perspective. But
Thank you.
Just another thought, what do you have her do during her quiet time, during that is?
I give her a cup of coffee. It's the first thing I do.
With a little bit of
Right.
dark chocolate.
And some dark chocolate.
And a popsicle.
So usually what happens is we try to kind of get her to help Grandma with Daphne, because Daphne wants to do everything Dottie does. And Dottie, I I've recognized during this time what she wants is to be with me. And that is like hard because you want me, but I want to sleep. I want quiet time. So we've been, so the first phase is help grandma with Daphne. Then when Daphne is quiet enough and settled, she comes to see me. And then from there, what happens is we either do a puzzle, I read to her. That has been something that she's been really loving. And I think she loves, well, it's been Harry Potter. I know she's young, but she loves it so much.
Loves it too.
And she's not scared. And so I keep checking in. So that, and then, but even then, because of my brain, and it's been like this my whole life, I get like half a page and I start falling asleep. And so I try to do all the voices to make it interesting. But eventually there comes a time where I cannot. I crash. And so then we've been giving her a podcast to listen to. And she really gets into that.
That's what I was actually going to recommend. Sparkle Stories is by Waldorf teachers. Have you tried that?
Oh, Sparkle Stories is Waldorf teachers?
Yeah, it's a former Waldorf teacher that crafts most of them, the man.
Yeah.
Elizabeth is the woman. David, Soule or something.
That's right. We have listened to that actually.
I think it's like the best money I've ever spent, and it worked really well transitioning my kids out of nap time when I had a different one napping, but they were not ready to nap. The stories are so peaceful. You can do them by age. I pre-screen everything in my children's life, and I pre-screen none of that. Like I just know it's like the style is telling the story. It's they're beautiful, and the ones I've heard many of them with the children. They're so peaceful. And I think that Sparkle Stories, it's a subscription, it's like $15 a month, so it's not cheap. But to me, I don't have to worry about what is gonna come on there, a commercial, any kind of anything.
Right.
Calling your brother booger brain or some weird thing that I've heard in some book that I thought was gonna be fine and it wasn't, and it started a thing. It's just really, really peaceful. And for my older three, we spent a good year on Sparkle Stories when another one was napping, and that gave me at least an hour. And they listened for an hour.
Yeah, we have a library app too that we get some audiobooks sometimes. And she's so sensory that sometimes just reading isn't enough.
Yeah,
She
I
needs
do
to
find they like
wrestle.
to listen while they play.
Yeah.
So I would set up a station, and I think it might take you like 2 or 3 months, like Miss Carmy said, like you repeatedly say, this is your time, you have Legos and coloring books and your story, but Daddy's resting. And you just keep bringing her back in just calmly, and knowing that one day you'll reach the point where she fully understands that's the rhythm of that hour or 2 or whatever your expectation is, but set it up so she can do things with her hands while she listens.
This is so great because it made me remember a new rhythm that she's been really into leading us in a yoga sesh. So she'll like say, okay everyone, let's get together now, take a breath. Like she'll lead a full yoga session for us. And so maybe that's what we should do. I should say, hey Donnie, can you lead me, can we do some yoga before we nap? Before quiet time? Yeah, but all of these things she already does. So why not incorporate them? Like, setting a puzzle, setting it to this.
I think that what Miss Carmy just like that over and over. We trained our kids on the clock, so they never come out of the room until that clock turns blue, because I need some sleep. Especially when I've been up all night with another one, It just takes a couple months of being like, clock's not blue, or clock's not yellow, and bringing them in, and you have to do it, and do it, and do it, and then all of a sudden, like, they won't come out of that room until it's yellow, and you're like, wow, I've trained a monster, like, you literally won't, like, break this rule, but it takes patience. And just every single day, repeating it calmly, just being with them, or making the maybe even the clock. I mean, I found that was useful also.
Is this a specific color clock?
Yeah, I use Hatch for one of my kids, and just like a Grow clock for not Grow clock, it's a different brand, it's UK brand, I forget. But same thing, anything like that works, and you can set it for nap, or rest. The clock will be blue while you're in here, and then at yellow, when it glows yellow, you can come out, and then if she comes out, just look at, oh, your clock is still blue. Why don't we look at coloring and just, I'm sorry I'm talking too much, but that's some things that work for our family. Sorry. You're the experts. You guys talk.
That's why, everyone has
we've been trying to
Absolutely.
bring other cultures in too, like siesta. I mean, this is a time that.
Let's make a culture wide shift.
It's
Yes,
not-
exactly.
Yeah, it's not yeah, I mean, I would just say, I mean, it's not a bad thing. They may want to do this, but it's time to do this.
This is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing
This is
now.
what we're
And I
doing
think it's
now.
about creating a family rhythm. You know,
Absolutely.
it's like, it's not just about
About the
the
child.
rhythm for
Right.
your child,
Yeah.
but it's creating a family rhythm, because parenting is hard. If anybody had ever told us how hard it was gonna be being parents, there would never be any children. Like, it's true. You know, it's the hardest job. I mean, pat yourselves on the back. It is a hard job, and it's, 24/7.
Yeah.
So, and, so it is about creating the family rhythm, finding that your needs are met as well.
Mhm.
And obviously, we're the adults, and so we have to, make a few more sacrifices in there, but still, in order to be, I always say, if I had had more sleep, I'd been a way better parent.
Yeah.
And I just, didn't, I regret that. I do regret.
How many kids did you have?
I have 2 daughters and I have 2 stepsons.
Okay,
So
great.
we have 4 altogether.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Of course, yeah, of course. That's what it's about.
We've talked a lot about the rhythm of the day and like the daily rhythms, and obviously that's the most daily, the most sort of pressing. But I think one of the things that I really took from NatureTots and has really it is continuing to sit with me is the rhythms of the year and the seasons. It's funny you were talking about like the actual change of the seasons, and then in places that don't have as obvious change of the seasons. Right out of college, I spent a year in Ecuador, right on the equator, and so the days were 12 hours long all year round. There was a slight rainy season and a slight dry season, but the weather was the same at Christmas as at Easter. And it was very off-putting, I have to say, coming from, Tennessee, Ohio,
Yes.
4 big seasons. And so I found that the cultural seasons were much more important, were very important to pass the time.
Yes.
And so Christmas, the observation of Christmas and all of the things that were done, and then a few months later there was Easter, and so those markers became much more important when there wasn't the trees weren't changing colors to indicate that time had passed.
Yeah.
But then coming back, it made me appreciate the 4 seasons so much more. But I think that there's a lot to. One of the things that I've taken is the ebbs and flows of energy. That the summertime, there's more daylight. There's things springing up everywhere, and then by contrast, in the winter, it's quiet, it's dark, and kind of embracing that for myself and for our family. That it's okay if we do more things in the summertime and fewer things in the wintertime, and respecting that and respecting. Respecting our need for that, the need to ebb and flow. And then as one of the things that I think is a really interesting crossover is like this, the cycle of fertile and fallow, and even to like sabbaticals in the church and in universities that we don't do, that most professions don't do anymore, but the 7-year cycle and how that corresponds with the stages of the child development philosophy. I think those overlaps of the seasons and the cycles, it's such a beautiful intricate puzzle that I keep seeing it all around, and I love how it all intersects. But it's the daily rhythm, it's the weekly rhythm, it's some months I feel like you kind of go from weeks to seasons in my mind. And then the annual observances, and then those markers
of life, you know, you rotate your fields every 7 years, you know, you go on sabbatical every 7 years if
Yeah.
that's part of your profession, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's
No,
things that come to mind. And, but are countercultural, really. I'm in the position where I'm not working outside our home right now, and so I have the ability to rein it back in the wintertime.
Yeah.
But, you know, folks who, it's not like, I mean, some places do summer hours, but, you know, you still are working 40 hours a week. Whether it's, you know, whether that's all the daylight there is,
Right,
or, you know,
right.
you
Yeah.
got- oh, yeah. And so I think it's coming back and getting back in touch with that, as an adult, makes me wish that I had never lost kind of the touch with those rhythms. And so I'm hoping that that's not an experience my children ever have to, I hope that like their rhythms don't ever get that far away from nature, if that makes sense. Anyway,
Well, the beauty is that we can help them have that be part of who they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That becomes important, that I think, that's why it's all, I think about having that backyard experience, that relationship as we talk about in our class. That's what we're all about. We don't need to teach them that. There's a relationship that will happen between what they're experiencing if we allow it to happen. We don't impose what we think they need to know about that. Right, that, you know, and then that will keep them in that wonder place. And that can go on, right? We can get, and that's the beauty, I think too, we get to go back there. If we are present, right, the joy that we see in our children really having that experience of what they see and what's in nature for them. People pay, I mean, grown-ups pay good money now, right, to get back to nature, or whatever we do, it's like, it's here, it's here. It's here. But we're not allowed to, experience it. We're, you know, what would it be like if we ate only the foods in season? You know, why can't we do that? That's how our bodies are healthy, that's how we get all of that variation if we do that, right? But, we just, that learning how not to be instant gratification. All of those things that we hope.
Parenting's really good about that, I find. The instant gratification, there's none of it.
No, it's like we're reading in our class right now, it's the what is it, what was it, forgive me, I think we're all in probably different places, but the marshmallow experiment.
Oh, yeah.
You can have this one now, or if you wait 15 minutes, you can have two, which is weird with timing. I'm like, of course not. If I'm a toddler, I'm gonna eat what's in front of me. I don't have any concept of time that I'm gonna have two. However, that being said, whatever the age is that they did that, our children are losing the ability to wait. It's you know, we cut butt, we are guilty. We give them what they want all the time, right?
And I will say by creating that, you know, the waiting and different things, it does help with self-regulation.
Absolutely.
We struggle, you know, we struggle with that, and by saying, well, no,
This is
not
what we're doing now.
This is what we're doing now, you know, and then eventually, like, no, it's not time yet, you know. And then, but it will be soon, you know, and it's not in a punitive way, you know, none of these things are in a punitive way, it's just like, it's, you know, and they're looking for the adult, even though they push against it, they're looking for the adult, they're looking for that person to bring that regulation and boundary and guidance and, you know, and rhythm to them, so, to help support them. And then they love to run amok. Because it's fun.
You can see the strong pull for it though, like in a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Right before it's put on them, they're telling you, no, this is the order, or that's not what we do, or you don't wear those shoes. Like I walk in wearing my shoes, where are your slippers? You know, it's like, no, we can do nothing until your slippers are on. Even if I'm running for 1 second, it's like, these are the rules, this is the structure, this is the flow. And then after that, they push it. But you can like just look at a 2-year-old and see how much they crave the rhythm.
Yeah,
They will run the rhythm.
And like I said before, you know, you're really, so once you do have a rhythm established, then you'll find, you know, like and I'm like this in the summer, it's like, I don't even have to look at the clock, it's 10:30.
Yeah, all of us, it's like for a while, it takes a while.
All of us, we
to get out of
joke about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's 10:30, are you But, you know, and then you can really see that in the children, it's like, well, we need to, even though, you know, I'm not looking at the clock, but they also notice, like, also these wonderful rhythms in nature, like we feed the birds every day, and the birds start to gather at the time that we usually feed them. And they can say, the bird feeder's empty, and the birds are all gathering in the trees, and then, you know, we fill the bird feeder, and then it's time to, you know, move on to the next thing and get ready for snack, and then they're like, I'm thirsty, we're getting ready to go inside, you know, so it starts to build in them, and then you can, like, flow with that.
I think it is hardest when your children are in such different stages of life, like Amy's talking about.
Yeah,
And really,
so
Jerome, your
many.
kids are still in pretty different
Yeah,
stages.
3 at this point, 3 years ago.
But it won't be that way for very much longer. I mean, pretty soon they're gonna both be in sort of regular school hours and that sort of thing. I know it doesn't seem pretty soon, but
Right.
in the big spectrum.
Yeah, and I struggle with that too, because I think to myself, oh man, okay, as long as once they get past this thing, then they'll be better. And then it's like, well, but I don't want to miss them now.
Yeah.
And then, but there's.
We need to get you
And then the
some
next
sleep.
thing. And then the next stage comes, right? That's a whole next step.
Yeah, I actually really love talking with parents if I'm at an event and I see parents who have children who are, you know, much older. It's so interesting talking to them because for you all who have older kids, you're still a parent to these kids who are this age for the first time. And so it's really cool to know that we're in the same boat.
Oh, yeah.
Still, which is kind of cool. And I have 2 more things that I want to say before I forget, but from some of the things that you all have said, there's a book that I really love, and I've actually assigned it to my movement class students called Movement Matters, and it's all about this, what you're talking about by Katie Bowman. These rhythms of how we forget that we are the natural world and we are Earth. So that's so movement is very important, and so movement matters. And then there's another chapter that says science matters, science moves, food moves. And the food moves one is really nice because it's all about, you know, if you make bread, you have to move your body to knead it. You have to chop. You know, you have to do all this stuff to prepare.
I've got some no-need recipes.
Some what?
Some no-need recipes.
Oh, great, yeah. I don't need that one. But then there's another one, we're talking about rhythms and the earth and seasons. I didn't even finish this yet, but I'm an auditory learner, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and there's one, I brought it, and it's super fascinating. It's called Is Earth Alive? And it is a commentary. There are 4 different points about how the earth is actually more than just a living organism, but that it's actually alive. And it talks about the seasons and the rhythm and the breath of the earth, because they also pointed out there's this thing online where you can actually, I think if you just look up the earth breathes, the earth breathes. And it's this time lapse of the seasons, and it really does look like the earth is having these breaths. And so it's called, the podcast is called Unexplainable. Maybe I'll send an email.
Yeah, please do.
It's super interesting and really cool. It's all of the things that came up, you know, you were talking about this annual rhythm. It's important, and to tap into that, it's really meaningful. So thank you for this. Yeah.
While on the topic of podcasts, I'm pretty sure it's the same person who wrote your little journal. There is
Yes.
a We Nurture podcast as well.
Absolutely.
There are not a ton of episodes of it, but they are very good. So that's one to look for.
Susie and I would listen to, there's a podcast also called Waldorfy.
Yes.
That's good, you know it, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a great one.
That's so fun.
It's fun to actually listen before your kid goes into the next grade.
It's good.
I really like that season. She's a whole season of just like what's each grade. And Lori Cron, remember? She was on one of those.
She did one set of Michael Gannon, I
Did she do
think.
first grade?
I can't remember which grade, maybe
Yeah, she's a former teacher.
one of the lower grades.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's very practiced.
yeah.
Any last minute questions before we wrap up?
The resources that you had, are those one of the handouts? Or could you pop that slide back up so I can take a picture of it?
Sure, I think we can. Can we print it right back on?
Or I can
Oh,
just
I
send you
did.
a copy
Yes,
to
actually,
people.
here, I've got it right here.
Or
I made
okay,
a copy
yeah.
of, no, I made a copy of the